I had always planned on doing a shout-out video when and if I hit 2,500 subscribers. I assumed that when, if ever, that took place, it wouldn't be for at least a few more months. But much to my pleasant surprise, I was fortunate enough to get a very unexpected shout-out from a fantastic videographer here on YouTube, brettppalmer, also known as the Bible Skeptic. Because of Brett's shout-out, what I thought might take a few months suddenly became a few days. And because of that, Brett, you have my deepest gratitude. I've been a long-time subscriber to your channel and I do appreciate your support. So, thank you, sir, very much. I also want to say thank you to everyone, new and old, to my channel, especially those who just subscribed due to Brett's shout-out. So to each and every one of you, a heartfelt thank you as well. I do have more videos in the works, so please keep an eye out for some fresh output soon. In the interim, if you are indeed new to my channel and want to know more about it, why I started it, and what to expect from it, please check out this video. It is actually an introduction to a series already on my channel, but it does describe my channel pretty much in a nutshell. Here's a short clip of the video, and there will be a link to the entire video in the description box below. You have not derived your understanding of the natural universe in which we all dwell by filtering it through the stained glass of faith, superstition, selective ignorance, and wishful thinking. You have chosen to break through the glass and leave the walled confines of long-held beliefs and imbued questionable truths, and to gaze upon all of nature and its many mysteries, to examine humanity's accomplishments and strengths, its weaknesses and atrocities, its philosophies, ideologies, and politics, not through a tainted lens of religious belief, but directly through the unhindered eye of critical thinking, observation, logic, rational inquiry, and open skepticism. If you visit my channel, you'll see that I have two playlists dedicated to my hobby of diving for tropical fish here in Virginia and in North Carolina. I have opened a new channel called TropicalStrays, and it is specifically dedicated to my hobby. So over the course of the next couple weeks, I am going to take these playlists and videos off of this channel and move them to my TropicalStrays channel. If anyone is interested in my adventures in the water and what I find out there, please check out my new channel. There will be a link in the description box below.
Well, you know you make me wanna kick my heels up and throw my hands up and throw my head back and come on now, don't forget to say you will.
Reinforcing positive atheism is very important to me. It's also important to a staggeringly large and quickly growing group of people that are far more interested in furthering proper education and tolerance among humans than they are cutting off society from religion entirely. Religion is part of our history, all of our history. It's still an engaging topic and has a firm and rightful place in history, philosophy, and even theology. The study of religions will never be obsolete, as it's such an interesting phenomenon. The things the human mind are capable of are far better understood when we have such examples to consider. Overwhelming groupthink and its correlation with rumor and popular belief, coupled with our natural need for community and our brain's evolved technique of detecting agency, creates incredible outcomes, for better or for worse. When the general public is kept ignorant of science and history, and made to believe the humans inhabiting the rest of the world are somehow different, we can no longer make decisions based on what's truly best for our species. Wars begin and never end. False senses of entitlement and the submission to power claiming to come from on high are important and powerful control mechanisms for any person or group of people seeking to claim control over a larger group of the subservient masses. They don't want you to learn that we're all the same. They want you right where you are. Just put something in the collection plate. Face the right direction when you're on your knees and do exactly what we tell you. And only when you die, you can know the truth.
You know you make me wanna shout, kick my heels up and shout, throw my hands up and shout, throw my head back and shout, come on now, don't get to say.
Inside my mind, very quietly, I heard these words. If God were human, I wouldn't want him as a friend. I recognized the voice as my own. I knew it wasn't the voice of ultimate evil, but myself making a clear and reasonable point. I realized with shock that I didn't even respect God, much less like him or love him. I feared him. Then I realized that God had heard me think this, and became even more afraid. I pushed the dangerous thoughts away again, and sang the next hymn with anxious fervor. I tried to convince myself that I needed to pray and fight harder against Satan. But something had clicked. It was too late. I had finally realized that God was a prick. I didn't stop believing in him. At first, I just stopped liking him. I kept going to church for a while, struggling with these difficult emotions. I was sure I was going to hell, and there was nothing I could do about it. I kept up half-hearted efforts at being the good Christian. Then one day, a black man was asked to leave our church and encouraged to go worship among his own kind. He was a single father with a little girl. He left quietly, holding her hand. I walked out right behind him and never returned to that church or any other.
Apologists for supernaturalism often ask four gotcha questions about the origins of the universe, fine-tuning, laws, and values. In this video, I briefly touch upon naturalistic answers to these questions that are, in my opinion, superior to the supernatural answers offered by the Inquisitors. Well, I don't, because I can't. I certainly don't claim that the Big Bang accounts for the origin of everything that exists, nor would I agree that it represents the start or limits of nature. It's just something that happened about 13.75 billion years ago, and there is no good reason as to why other natural things could not, in principle, have happened before or beyond it. Peddlers of first cause arguments for the supernatural cannot rationally explain the origin of the universe either. That they loudly claim to be able to, whilst quietly sweeping the baselessness of their accounts under the carpet, ought to make us suspicious of their reasoning and motives. Since the consequences of endorsing a false explanation are, more often than not, worse than truthfully admitting one's ignorance, an irrational explanation is worse than no explanation. Therefore, my naturalist answer to this question is superior to their supernaturalist answer.
As you all know from my other videos, I've recently deconverted from Christianity. The question of whether I'm an anti-theist or an atheist still has yet to be determined, and I understand the arguments concerning positive claims surrounding this issue, and although I have no proof that God does exist, I will admit that I personally believe that the God I followed for 25 years does not exist in any physical or spiritual form. Admittedly, this definition does state that I'm an anti-theist, but I cannot prove my claim, so I guess I'm an atheist by default, but an anti-theist by mindset. Having never believed in any other gods, going that one God further meant that the spiritual world I so adamantly claimed existed was now a barren wasteland in my psyche, a wasteland that I fully intended to refill with the beauty and wonder of the universe surrounding me. I've always found science to be rife with imagination, hope, and that science is the tool for understanding our world, our existence, and our future. To deny science is to deny knowledge, in my opinion, and knowledge is how we got where we are, and how we will get beyond where we are. The continued existence of the human species is contingent upon our willingness to seek beyond our own needs and reach for the stars so that our species may one day look back at us and thank us for propelling them onward into a brighter future. May we be the shoulders upon which future generations stand. And as hopeful as that idea is, and as hopeful as I am that the future is bright and clear and promising, I'm stuck in a crisis of existence.
When placing religion and reality side by side, a sacrifice needs to be made. The two are mutually exclusive and thus cannot be reconciled. The emergence of 4 possible manners of response to this quagmire results, and the choice of response to these 4 options determines one's categorization in what I call a sanity spectrum of one's theological worldview. Option 1 is to entirely omit the Bible in favor of reality. This is an irreligious move and would thus fall to the very right of the spectrum, which represents the sanest possible worldview. Option 2 is to entirely omit reality in favor of the Bible. Being the diametric opposite of option 1, this theological worldview is, by extension, the least sane out of the 4 possible responses, and thus falls to the far left of the spectrum. This is a Dark Age worldview, and though quite rare in the West nowadays, it has left its bloodstained mark upon history. Option 3 is to try reconciling reality to try to fit Scripture, which is interpreted literally. This worldview falls to the immediate right of the Dark Age worldview, and I have labeled it accordingly. This is the literalist worldview. The final option, option 4, is to try to reconcile Scripture to try to fit reality. It falls to the immediate left of the irreligious worldview, and is assigned the label of moderatism. It is this 4th worldview that I always find difficult to address, because it does not, in a strict sense, correspond with any mainstream worldview. For more insight on the matter, please refer to my video, Moderately Insane.
Hi, TheMudbrooker here.
You know you make me wanna shout, kick my heels up and shout, throw my hands up and shout, throw my head back and shout, come on.
The fatal flaw with counter-apologetics is that it relies on the intellectual honesty of the apologist you're responding to. If you rounded up every apologist that ever existed, it would be near miraculous if you could scrape up a microgram of intellectual honesty amongst a lot of them. So if you find yourself confronted by an apologist, rather than wasting your time with counter-apologetics, I suggest a good counter-attack instead. Because using logic against people like this is a waste of time. They have tried to co-opt logic in order to support their fantasies, and in the process they have mangled and mutilated logic to the point where it's entirely useless. Besides that, they haven't arrived to the position they hold now by logical means. They've arrived at the position because it satisfies an emotional need on their part. They need to think that there is some supreme being who loves them and who is deeply concerned with them. It's entirely illogical, and they have created their own little fantasy world in order to support this belief. Rather than trying to use the logic, which they'll just rape to death anyway, to counter this belief, I think that you're better off directly attacking the fantasy world that they have created on their own terms.
You know you make me wanna shout, kick my heels up and shout, throw my